Neon trembles over Lower Broadway long after the tourists stagger back to their hotel rooms, painting the wet asphalt the same bruised violet you find on a forgotten vinyl jacket from 1963. Somewhere behind Tootsie's warped back door, a single steel string hums like an unanswered question, reminding any night owl within earshot that country music's brightest anthems were glued together with secrets, shame, and stubborn hope. Today we slip past the velvet rope of history and eavesdrop on a chorus of women whose love lives never made the liner notes, yet shaped every broken glass harmony you've ever cried to at closing time. First, the curtain snaps back for K.D. Lang, the prairie contralto who bent notes like barbed wire yet still smiled through the sting. In 1992, she declared her heart's coordinates to a national magazine, flinging closet doors so loudly the Opry rafters rattled. Sponsors panicked. A few programmers filed her records under risk, but arena sing-alongs drowned the backlash. Lang's tuxedos and velvet smirks became neon exit signs for every dreamer waiting to exhale behind the merch table. Shelley Wright studied that rebellion like scripture. By 2010, she had toured the revival tent of country fame for years, bowing after every wholesome anthem while a storm brewed behind her fearless grin. When the weight finally cracked her ribs, she chose daylight over despair, announcing her truth with a best-selling memoir and a live interview that made half of Nashville choke on its sweet tea. Some managers scraped her name off marquees, others quietly thanked her for lighting the path their own kids might need someday. The aftershocks echoed through smoky writers' rounds where Mary Gauthier bled honesty onto bar napkin lyrics no rush-hour station dared spin. A one-time chef with a rap sheet and a suitcase full of heartache, she mailed postcards from the edge that mapped the way home in bourbon-colored ink. While labels heard trouble, lost souls heard absolution, and her standing room crowds proved confession could be good business. A few miles west, Brandi Carlile cranked the master fader on folk rock grit and gospel lift, forging a bridge between Laurel Canyon earnestness and tent revival thunder. She raised twins with her wife under headlines that once would have ended a career. The only thing that crumbled was the old rulebook. When she later traded harmonies with Tanya Tucker and Joni Mitchell, crowds cared less about pronouns than about the promise blazing in every chord she struck. Wilma Burgess understood blinds better than most. In the 60s, she recorded ballads so aching you'd swear she was singing into the pulse beside her, yet she demanded gender-neutral lyrics to keep DJs guessing. Offstage, she bought Patsy Cline's old house and filled it with laughter from the woman insiders called her forever companion. Neighborhood gossip asked questions. Burgess cranked the stereo louder and dealt another poker hand. Patsy herself hovers over this tale like a restless chandelier. Official biographies frame her as the married mother who crashed into immortality at 30, but bandmates remember the fire in her grin whenever a sharp-tongued female tourmate cracked a joke nobody else dared. Platonic or not, the intimacy in her letters suggests she understood desire's untidy borders long before society drew straight lines. Her widow tried to cement a wholesome narrative. Fans rewrote it in every candlelit tribute show. If Kitty Wells shattered patriarchy with one A-side, Skeeter Davis rewired its speakers. They wore polite Sunday dresses, yet their songwriting drilled holes through pew-polished sermons. What if heartbreak belonged to the heroine, not the villain? Rumor says each nurtured friendship so fierce they blurred into moonlit alliances, sharing coffee till dawn and melodies too personal for radio. Rosalie Sorrells and Janice Martin never bothered with polite. Sorrells crisscrossed state lines in a van smelling of turpentine and revolution, belting protest verses beside poets who spelled liberation with every vowel. Martin, the female Elvis, jittered across monitors with a swagger so hot executives panicked, stuffing her into domestic storylines she wore like borrowed shoes. Fans crowned her patron saint of anyone whose pulse raced offbeat. Bobby Gentry wrote a generation of men off the map with one swamp-fogged mystery and vanished before they asked follow-ups. Reporters spent decades guessing why Chickasaw County's siren ghosted fame. Some claim she was tired of choosing between art and privacy. Others whisper about tongues sharpening when dinner guests registered female. True or not, Gentry's locked gates still sell more copies of Ode to Billy Joe than any documentary. Jessie Coulter's eyeliner could pen its own outlaw anthem. Married to Waylon, yet fiercely solo, she wrote ballads so tender they almost confessed more than words aloud. Roadies hint at backstage embraces lingering longer than encores, but outlaw country preferred myth over minutes. Margie Bowes, Connie Gay's studio stalwarts, and half the women who sang on radio transcriptions faced the same hush. Grab a microphone, but don't grab the wrong hand in public. Meanwhile, Diane Jones and Janice Oliver harmonized so close it practically fused their DNA, while managers begged for wardrobe malfunctions and hetero duet partners. They declined, doubled down on delicate runs that felt like inside jokes disguised as choruses, and left every rumor hanging in perfect fifths. Jean Shepherd sang endurance into existence, refusing to fade after marriage or motherhood. Whispered friendships bloomed on her tour bus, the kind guarded by chorus-length eye contact. June Carter Cash borrowed that blueprint, tossing punchlines like roses and crafting alliances with women who knew laughter doubles as camouflage. Connie Smith once joked, Opry dressing rooms hold more mysteries than the Library of Congress. Diaries hide in guitar cases, Polaroids under amps, lipstick shades traded like classified intel. Each artifact hinting at romances no historian dares footnote, yet every harmonica moan still bears the fingerprint of forbidden love. Even the era's lone openly queer album, Lavender Country, didn't emerge from Music Row but from a Seattle community hall where truth could scream without bouncing off boardroom glass. The record sold barely 1,000 copies, but bootlegs migrated south, landing with closeted pickers who memorized every bar. After a 2014 reissue, Gen Z kids streaming playlists heard proof that cowboy boots could sing openly for them. Flash forward, and you'll see Brandy in a tailored suit beside Tanya, Mary on stage with the Highwomen, Chelly headlining Pride 2 blocks from studios that once shut her out. Progress hums, but managers still mutter demographic risk, and radio consultants click tongues like metronomes stuck on yesterday's tempo. Yet every time a singer thanks her wife from center stage, you can almost hear Wilma Burgess clink glasses in cosmic applause. Country music was never a straight highway. It's a switchback mountain pass lined with roadside motels where secrets sign the guest book under aliases. These women carried flashlights bright enough to guide strangers but dim enough to dodge the sheriff. Some paid with canceled contracts, others with tabloid ambushes. A few vanished entirely, choosing peace over platinum. They left breadcrumbs in melody, a gender-neutral pronoun here, a harmonized sigh there, a key change that hints two hearts beat inside the same ribcage. Listen close next time a fiddle cries during a 1968 ballad. That tremor isn't just vibrato, it's the ghost of an unspoken vow. It's Kitty Wells meaning all angels. Patsy leaning toward the mic like it's a confidant. Skeeter turning the Opry into a diary page nobody can burn. We honor these legacies not by outing the dead nor plastering rainbows on monuments, but by tuning our radios to frequencies they carved with risk. When K.D. Lang's tenor floats above static, or Chelly's name beams across a marquee, the past hands us the next verse and dares us to sing louder. The chorus is simple. Love is real, fear is rented, and country music belongs to anyone whose heartbeat rhymes with a pedal steel swell. Linda Ronstadt never cut a surrender track, whether she belted Mexican folk or framed country rock with L.A. polish. Through the 70s and 80s, she hopped from cowboy boots to opera gowns, stacking Grammys while refusing to pin one badge to her denim jacket. Offstage, she championed AIDS benefits and early marriage equality drives. Tabloids chased her dating roster, but queer fans treasured the wide-open stage she offered to outsiders. Even if Ronstadt never stamped a label on her private life, her fearless genre bending turned late-night message boards into beacons for travelers, steering through stormy waters. Margie Bowes spent Friday nights trading two-step licks, then presided over jam sessions in a bungalow lit by Christmas bulbs all year. The only rule was, no clocks, no judgment. After her divorce, she moved in with a trusted assistant, and though her chart run cooled, The house became a halfway station where overlooked women swapped demos, dishes, and the reassurance that somebody in town understood. Diane Jones and Janice Oliver sang so tight every breath felt shared, yet executives kept pitching wardrobe tweaks and reality TV. They smiled, doubled their harmonies, and let the rumors glide unchallenged, proving sometimes resistance is simply refusing to change the key. Rosalie Sorrells once turned a Boise motel balcony into a midnight folk fest, coaxing truckers upstairs with free whiskey and songs never pressed to vinyl. When columnists called her corrupt, she mailed them a cassette labeled Therapy and kept touring bookstores, gay bars, and campus greens, wherever a mic needed defying. Skeeter Davis scribbled diary entries in Gideon Bibles, adopted mod jumpsuits and Eastern mysticism, and played stripped-down sets in women's prisons, signing autographs. Your heart already knows the chorus. Gossip flickered. She kept singing. June Carter Cash's offstage salon of songwriters hammered lyrics about autonomy and prophecy, lifting spirits with moonshine and mandolins until sunrise stitched the horizon. Connie B. Gay's rehearsal barns sheltered unplugged revolutions, women swapping verses and partners with equal daring, leaving future historians a shoebox of Polaroids annotated in code only an untamed heart could decipher. Kitty Wells may have seemed traditional, but when she countered blame with her honky-tonk angels, envelopes addressed simply to Miss Kitty Nashville piled high, each containing a relieved breath from someone who finally felt named. Because in the end, the most outlaw move isn't smashing guitars or snorting lines of coke. It's telling the truth about who you are and loving without any apology. That's the story Nashville could never bury, no matter how many vinyl jackets it shrink-wrapped in fiction. The secret is out, the lights are on, and the stage is finally wide enough for every voice that once hid in the wings. All you have to do is listen, and then pass the mic. But the story lingers far beyond chart positions and award shows. Picture a Friday night on Printer's Alley in 1974, smoke coiling above neon beer signs shaped like fiddles. In a cramped basement club, a young studio secretary named Wanda soaks in a hush as Lavender Country's Patrick Haggerty introduces a guest nobody recognizes at first glance. Wilma Burgess, in a denim jacket stitched with tiny rainbows, she swears are just Western flair. She eases onto a bar stool, taps a tambourine against her knee, and croons harmony so sweet, two patrons burst into spontaneous tears. Somebody boots the set on a handheld tape deck the size of a paperback, capturing every off-mic giggle and whispered lyric change that kept the love song gender-free. That bootleg, pressed on thrift store acetates, crisscrossed truck stops like a roadside gospel. By the time it hit a dusty jukebox in El Paso, a teenage dispatcher named Tish Hinojosa fed at quarters all summer, scribbling lyrics on manifest sheets and dreaming of a border-blended sound that would later fuel her own activist ballads. The legacy slides, too, through the calloused hands of session musicians. Take steel player Cindy Cashdollar, barely 20 when she started sneaking slide licks onto alt-country demos that referenced pronouns nobody dared print on lyric sheets. Engineers winked, hit record, and left the console meters to confess the rest. Meanwhile, hidden in plain sight, booking agent Francis Preston ran interference like a pool hall shark, slipping inclusive riders into festival contracts, so coded no promoter caught on until the parade flags hit the merch tent. Whenever her tactic worked, she'd phone Wilma Burgess and crow, "Another brick out of the wall, sister," before hanging up to negotiate the next coup. Preston's quiet rebellion proved a fresh truth. Revolution often wears a power suit and an innocent smile. Across the Atlantic, Dusty Springfield, herself no stranger to double lives, kept a worn cassette of Patsy Cline's demo takes in her London flat. Friends recall Dusty pressing play during late-night whiskey vigils, tracing Patsy's phrasing with a finger in the air while murmuring, she knew exactly what she couldn't say. Years later, when Dusty cut the Torch Song album that redefined Blue-Eyed Soul, she credited Patsy and Wilma for teaching her the geometry of longing. That influence bounced straight back to Nashville when young songwriters cited Dusty as their gateway into Patsy's vault, proving inspiration moves like bootleg whiskey, always finding an unmarked road. Closer to home, a forgotten Opry understudy named Gloria Bell kept a spiral notebook labeled, "If I Ever Get the Mic." Between grocery lists and childcare notes, she drafted verses about motel curtains that never quite closed, truck stop postcards that arrived unsigned, and the phantom taste of lipstick after an encore hug lasted too long. She passed without recording a full album, yet her pages resurfaced in estate boxes and now circulate among Americana circles as sacred relics. Even mainstream radio eventually slipped. In 1998, a late-night host accidentally spun Mary Gauthier's Drag Queens in Limousines on a syndicated show. Switchboards exploded, some calls livid, others relieved, but the ratings leap made producers rethink their math. Suddenly, niche became untapped market, and a crack widened in the dam big enough for an entire festival season. But cracks invite water, and water invites life. By 2005, Pride stages sprouted beside beer gardens at state fairs. Old guard announcers who once refused to read Shelley's name learned to pronounce Brandy's. The transition was clumsy, spotlights sometimes flickered, introductions stumbled, but the music always carried itself with cathedral-grade authority. A Telecaster doesn't care who you kiss. It only cares whether you can bend the note clean. Through it all, rumors kept their own tempo. Some whispered Linda Ronstadt's backstage pass list skewed suspiciously femme. Others insisted Bobby Gentry's reclusiveness was less about paparazzi and more about protecting a lifelong partner from flashbulb scrutiny. When journalists pressed, insiders shrugged. The mystery sold tickets, but the music sold forever. Newspapers eventually pivoted. A 2012 headline asked, "Is country ready for its first lesbian superstar?" Comment sections answered, "She's been here for decades, you just changed the marquee." The piece ended with a quote from an anonymous Hall of Fame executive. "History isn't silent, we just keep the volume low." Volume is a fickle beast, though. In 2017, when Brandi Carlile openly thanked her wife and daughters during a Grammy pre-telecast, the streaming numbers on her back catalog jumped 50% overnight, eclipsing every consultant's cautionary graph. Sponsors didn't flee, they bid higher. The only casualties were outdated myths. Even bluegrass, that bastion of father-to-son picking lore, felt the vibration. Molly Tuttle invited Sierra Hull and an all-woman lineup to rip through Kitty Wells's "It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels" at a Colorado festival. They swapped the original Heartbreak into a protest shout, trading solos like chain lightning. Teenagers in the crowd, phones held high, later spliced the footage into viral edits captioned, "Proof Country was always queer." And still the conversation finds new verses. In 2023, a TikTok clip of KD Lang covering Ring of Fire in a minor key soundtracked 500,000 coming out montages. The comment with the most likes simply read, "Wanted, a time machine so I can send this to Patsy." None of this erases the cost. Archives bulge with unsigned contracts sent back once boyfriends materialized on marketing decks. Hospital rooms swallowed bedside confessions that never reached vinyl. But scars can spark as much light as prisms if angled correctly, and these songs remain perfectly tilted. So if you drive through Nashville on a rain-heavy Tuesday and roll your windows down near Music Row, lean closer when the wind carries faint harmonies from behind a security gate. That's not just another demo escaping a studio vent, that's the echo of every hush that ever tried to strangle truth. It's Skeeter humming counterpoint from whatever constellation she commandeered, Rosalie dropping a laugh track over thunder, and June Carter Cash slapping her thigh in percussive approval. Tonight, in whatever dive you're nursing your loneliness, pick a track by any of these women, slide a quarter in the jukebox, and picture the faces they secretly sang to. Notice how the air changes temperature on the first chorus, how neon reflections stretch taller than the bar's low ceiling, how your pulse sinks to a rhythm older than the sign outside. Breathe.